And we are live. Welcome to another episode of the FreudenFreude weekly podcast, where we bring you content to help you grow as a person and as a leader.
I am Sandra Corona.
And I'm Claudia, and we
Are
are coaches.
coaches.
There we
Yes.
go.
At least we said that together.
It's never going to be together because there's lag between
Oh, that's
what I
right.
say and what you hear. But it's the thought that counts. There we
There
go.
you go. Well, I am a coach for leaders, expatriates, HR, its departments.
And I am a professional coach working with corporate leaders, entrepreneurs, as well as their teams in tech and beyond. So let's get started for today. So today we are talking about service, a mindset of service, a culture of service. You actually proposed this as a potential topic. What drew you to it, Sandra?
Okay, so really quickly, I think that there's certain governmental institutions that represent people around the world, such as embassies and consuls, right? And these places, when you walk into them, you expect to be treated in a different manner, in a different way. You expect to feel like you're walking into your home, right? And no matter where you are, it just has to feel like that.
And
Well,
so you told me the story yesterday. So
you're
this
right.
was in particular an embassy, right?
Yes.
So you're in a far off foreign land and you walk into, what was it, the US embassy, I assume?
I walked actually into two different ones. One was the Mexican embassy consul, I'm sorry, and the American consul.
Right, right. And so you kind of expect a piece of home as
Oh
you walk
yeah,
into those embassies, but that was not really your experience, was it?
it was not. For me, it's like I even wore a dress. Okay, in Saudi Arabia, nobody wears a dress without wearing something underneath the dress, something that covers your legs, and so on and so on. Well, I wore a dress with sandals, and I thought, hey, I'm going to feel like at home. People are going to be chilling, and there's going to be all this, like, you really imagine all this work going on and all of these offices and people walking in and out. It was not that. I walked into Saudi Arabia. It wasn't home. And maybe for the people, for the Saudis that walk in there to get their visas and everything else, it feels fine because that's home for them. But for me as an American, I just, it was just strange. It was uncomfortable because I was with a dress, right? And I felt that people were looking at me. Anyways, the service was, there was a lot to work on. There was a need for people to be humble. There was a need for service, for the that feeling that you get from people wanting to serve you and wanting to help you. You know, that thing that you feel that you can ask a question. But it wasn't like that. It was like I was bothering people. It was just not an experience that I was hoping to have. And so I think that they require a lot of coaching. That's
Right,
my
right.
experience to
And,
share.
and, and so very interesting because it reminds me quite a bit. It has been ages since I was in a consulate or an embassy, but I think a lot of this might actually translate to if you walk into a hotel, let's say,
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
the sense of hospitality, of the fact that you can bring your culture and that you're welcome and that people are there literally to serve you, meaning not to be exploited, not to be put down, but to make your stay a positive one and to let you
Right.
enjoy yourself, right? And so there's an expectation there that you had that I think was, sorely underserved in the end, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. And, again, this is not about criticizing, this is about room for improvement, I think. And again, this has been in both consulates, the Mexican and the American. And I'm pretty sure that if they see this, it could play against me. But again, I'm not criticizing. I'm just hoping that service is improved and that they know from a perspective from a local, right, perspective to know what they're seeing and what they're encountering. And I think, yeah, there's a need to improve that.
Right, because I mean, it is one of the characteristics of an embassy or a consulate that it is a piece of that country in a foreign land, right? I mean,
Yes.
if you walk into the U.S. embassy, for example, in a country, you are in America, even politically, and with the rights and privileges that and responsibilities that implies, and so you had kind of hoped that the culture would also kind of show up, but it did.
Yes.
It didn't,
I
right?
felt like they were going to stop me, like I was actually the foreigner. I felt that way. It was strange. Like I felt that if I misbehaved, they were going to tackle me. That's yes, I was just walking like, like, oh my God, kind of careful to make
Because
sure that I did misbehave.
it was for all intents and purposes the Saudi Arabian culture on U.S. soil. And,
Yes.
and that for you was kind of this cognitive dissonance that was happening at that particular moment because you were looking forward to, this American culture for a change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 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 I was looking for color. I was looking for people laughing, people making noise. I was looking for that, and it wasn't there. There was too much seriousness. There was, and on top of that, the body language that is used here in Saudi Arabia was the same in the consulate. Whereas in the US, you have the customer service thing where they tell you, how can I help you? Because when you walk into this place and they see you looking around, immediately somebody approaches you and says, how can I help you? What are you here for? All these kind of things. And here it was like, you were doubting to ask, and two, if you asked, they would just tell you over there, which meant you need to find where it is. That's how it was. But
Right.
okay.
Right. Wow. So from that experience, if we look a little bit at similar things, and when we bring it back to today's topic, which is essentially service rather than embassies and consulates and the like,
Mm-hmm.
and the culture translation that you had hoped would happen. So service. I think that a person who works in an establishment, and let's put it under the umbrella of hospitality,
Yeah.
because it's not only in hotels, but it's like, for instance, a person that welcomes you to a store, or a customer service, a person that provides information, an information desk at a hospital, let's say. It's
Yeah.
all essentially hospitality. And
Mm-hmm.
so, uh, what do you think, from the person who is a client to that, what goes on internally, and also for the person who is having this a servant job, uh, not being a servant, but having a job with this servant characteristic. What plays in those two in your
Let me see. I'm not sure I understood the question. Can
what makes what makes the seeker of hospitality? What are characteristics of the seeker, and what are the characteristics of the person who provides this service?
Oh, okay. Okay, so we both know that there's the golden rule, right? We know that supposedly people want to be treated like, you think that people are wanting to be treated the way that you would like to be treated, right? And so there's this expectation that you are going to be serviced with the utmost interest of trying to almost guess your needs. Now, that is for some people, okay, because we also have to, be very specific. Not everybody thinks the same way. I can tell you that probably you and I, my husband, your husband, I walk in and I don't expect much depending on where I'm staying or where am I walking into. But I have to say that here in Saudi Arabia, the service is at par, if not more than that. You walk into a dealership, a car dealership, and they're offering you coffee, they're offering you dates, they're offering you cookies, and everything else, which also to me was strange, because if you were to combine the Saudi hospitality with the American hospitality, you would think that I would not need to expect anything other than nothing less than what I'm accustomed to, right? Now, the person that services you, what are their expectations is to make sure that the person that is receiving the service, I think at least says thank you, demonstrates that there's this, I don't know, like this thing about being grateful for the service that you're receiving. And I have to say again that the service here is magnificent, and I guess the response to your question is, for me, it's about not expecting anything less than what I'm used to. And then for the people here is to give the service that the Arabian hospitality is about, because even at home is like that.
Right, right. Very interesting. Yeah, I think that no matter where you are, if you are at the receiving end of really great service, it is truly an experience. And I think for me, one of the characteristics is that the person tried to be other focused. They were open to how what my needs would be, essentially, irrespective of how similar or not I am to them.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so the golden rule says, treat others as you would like to be treated. I think it goes actually beyond, and it goes towards the treat others like they would like to be treated, right? Like
Which
I
is what
think
the platinum rule.
platinum rule, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much about what are my expectations of what that person should want, but what are really their needs and their desires and so on, and taking into
Yes.
account that these people might be from a different culture, that they might be from a different background, and what would be perfectly normal to me might not at all be normal to them, and that they might require something different. And like, for instance, imagine that I am somebody who likes to relax with a bottle of beer after work. Let's just assume I'm not, but
Oh,
let's
okay.
just assume, thank you. Uh, and I don't drink. But let's assume, because many people are, that, for you, it's really nice to relax with a bottle of beer after work. That's kind of your reward for the day, and it really helps you make this transition into the
Right.
evening space. But maybe for some health or religious reason or whatever, your guest does not drink.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to go ahead and offer them a bottle of beer, right?
exactly,
You're
exactly.
going to respect that they might be different and offer alternatives. And this is just a simple example to
Right.
make the point. I think it's this other focusedness together with the humility that it takes, the
Yes.
open-mindedness and humility that it takes to take yourself to quite a large extent out of the equation. And some really fantastic service people, they do not even expect the thank you. It would be nice to get, it would be absolutely appreciated, but maybe there isn't even the expectation because they know deep down that they have provided the best service, they know how to give, and uh, for them, it's about them having provided that. That's where the
Mhm.
satisfaction comes from. And, we all know that there's always clients or customers or guests that are just not going to get it. Okay. And,
Mhm.
and so, but it's this pride essentially also into making this uh, to put themselves in the, let's call it guest, into the guest's shoes and providing maybe things to them that they didn't even know yet that that is what they would need. Right.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
somebody walks into a store and they have maybe a bewildered look into them, and maybe that guest having come into the store might not even have formulated the question yet, right, in their head, but there you are offering assistance.
Yeah.
Hotels, obviously, if you go to a really wonderful hotel, it's this sense that they look beyond themselves in order to kind of, just by observation and by guessing and by having done research sometimes, that they can anticipate what comes. And
Correct.
incidentally, I think that that also translates into leadership. I know,
Mhm.
big step, but there's this whole concept of servant leadership.
Mhm.
One of the hallmarks is this uh, truly other-centeredness, this putting the own self-interest kind of uh, aside and trying to really do what is, to the best benefit of the people that work for you, your followers, of the organization, of the community that you serve. And
Mhm.
doing that, also, I believe, was this sense of humility. Um, it's a mindset, I think, that you're always kind of, or not always, but that you aspire to, put that that you're not there to be the leader, to serve yourself primarily.
Mhm.
Uh,
Okay.
who's the client? It's kind of this question: who's the client? And the client that you serve is not necessarily yourself. It's going to be serving that community, that organization, your followers. The
Yeah.
success that comes with that is a consequence and not a goal.
Mhm. Okay.
So, right? Because it will come if you do this really well, that you can anticipate, I believe, and make in your leadership what's best for the collective, and really drive that forward. Of course, you're gonna be getting, brownie points as a leader.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
right,
exactly.
right. And
Yes.
so, but it's a consequence. It's not that you seek out to get those brownie points or to seek out to put yourself into the best light. It just happens because you do something else that is valued.
There's something in that I have to say that I am very grateful for the hospitality uh, groups and teams anywhere you go. Okay, I think you have to. If you don't have it and you develop it and you are that good, my respects, because I do not see myself being on the other side. Not even if my life depended on it. It really, like, I would suck. I would be fired probably on the first or second day. What I admire, the leadership skills that people acquire in those kind of positions are admirable, because I've known a couple of coaches, the best coaches that were once in the hospitality field, and they are patient. They listen. Oh my God, do they listen? They know how to break down your needs. Like you said, you don't even finish saying what you want, and they already kind of like, they say it and you're like, how did you know? And it's amazing when you find somebody that does that. I think for me, when I get that kind of customer service, I immediately feel humbled, because it's like, I did not expect that. So thank you very much. And then on top of that, you not only found out what I needed and wanted, but now it becomes a thing that as long as I'm staying there, this person is going to be on top of things for me. And I know that this person is going to immediately, you know, I don't want to say give me what I want or need, but they're going to be where they need to be for me. And I love that. Look at that. Who's here,
Hi,
Nadesh?
Nadesh.
Hello, ladies. Sorry, I had a call. I wanted to come on time, but
No, that's all right. Welcome,
yeah.
Nadesh. Welcome,
Welcome.
Thank you. How are
Um, we,
you?
we are talking, we are live, and we are talking about service. So feel free to, listen on and share your experiences or insights. If you could turn your device, that would make the image a little bit better. Thank you.
Okay.
And also, if you are just listening in, if you can turn off your video camera, that is
Will do.
also perfectly fine. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so the point is that we're talking about customer service because it is a cultural thing, right? And like we were saying, I think, like, for example, the best example is the Filipino community, that they come here in Saudi Arabia and they can teach Saudis some of the techniques. Not that they can teach them hospitality, because man, I'm telling you, you walk into a Saudi house and immediately you have candy, you have coffee, you have tea, you have sandwiches, you have everything. I mean, they basically almost gift you an abaya, which is the dress that they wear. If you want to use it, I mean, everything, whatever you want. And that is something that is part of their culture, and it is Jordanians, Lebanese, you name it, anybody in the Middle East, they have that. But what the Filipinos have is that they listen and they know how to de-escalate the problems. They know how to talk to you. They have this voice that if you're getting upset, they have this voice that they calm you, and you immediately start like, oh, okay, I got you. You know, we're understanding each other. So for me, when I walk into a place, that's what I'm hoping to not only experience customer service, but have a little bit of the experience of the culture as well. What about you, Claudia?
Well, I think that is right. And culture, as we know, permeates not only nationalities. It's it's sometimes seen within companies. It's sometimes seen within family groups and so on that have their own rules. And it's not always like you just mentioned about the outward things of etiquette, or like we make it a rule that we feed people well,
Yeah.
but it's truly this sense of interest, because yeah, in some cultures the way that you show care is by feeding people.
Yes.
It is because
Yeah.
when you look, for instance, how a Korean mother greets her daughter calling on the phone is by "Have you eaten?" That is their way that they say hello. They don't say hello. They say "Have you eaten?" It's
Okay.
kind of this thing that it's the way that you show that you care.
Sure.
And so it's very interesting from that perspective. And but what you mentioned here is that it's part of it, and it's wonderful if it exists. On the other hand, there is this sense of like when the Filipino person listens and tries to escalate something, it is not just a etiquette, a thing that you do out of habit. It is because they were attuned to what is happening, and your emotional uh, your emotional state at that moment, and the context that is happening in the now. And then they tried to de-escalate that, because it was not just something where they could go and hand you even more candy to make
Hmm.
you feel even more welcome. It was truly the sense of seeing what is happening in the moment. And I think that that requires, and I'm not saying that Saudi people don't do that. I'm just taking this example that we were discussing to a different conclusion. And but the thing is to have this, again, same word that I used earlier, this other centeredness, this awareness of what goes on in your counterpart. And then kind of um, seeing yourself as somebody who can influence that and bring it to maybe a more positive and relaxed conclusion for everybody. And I
Right.
think that that happens as well in companies, doesn't it?
Oh
You have
yeah.
you have leaders that do the things that you do to create a good environment maybe for their people to work with. We have a psychological safety agreement, and you do the team building, and you have the weekly get-togethers, and all these kind of things that you can get out of a good leadership book, by the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they put all that in practice, but it doesn't stop there. I think that there's this truly sense of awareness of what goes on with individuals and with the collective
Mm-hmm.
that they are a leader of, right? The team, the organization, and so on. And they're always kind of keeping an ear towards what's happening. And they're not constantly on their soapbox, or they're not there going on ego trips all day long, but they are there, and they do it. And I have had the privilege of knowing a leader that I truly see as an example of this. And this gentleman, he saw himself um, truly like a steward. He was a CEO of a mid-sized company, but he saw himself as a steward, as somebody who is entrusted the
Okay.
well-being of this company, and the people that work in it. And when you don't see yourself as the one who can just order people around, and who can, go on an ego trip or whatever, but
Right.
somebody who cares, really
Yes.
deeply cares about what's going in, about creating a good environment, it opens a different sense. And I remember hearing some of the people that worked there, that they said things like, when he talks to me, I feel like I'm the only person in the world to him at that moment, and I feel really heard.
Okay.
And you know, that it was just all around a good place to work. And I think that why are not more leaders like that? I think that's because there's still somehow this myth out there that trying to serve your followers and your organization that quote unquote you're a steward of at this point makes you somehow less or servile or submissive to it or weak or something like that. And I believe it's actually the opposite. What's your take on that?
You know, the same thing they used to say about Bill Clinton. Okay. They used to say that Bill Clinton, whoever walked into the room, and even if it was a room full of people, each and every single person that he spoke with, he knew the names of the family. He would remember, he would try to remember names of the family, of the children, you know, and talk to you directly. And he would just be, his whole focus would be on you. How was this possible? I was reading today, it just came across my screen, and I was reading that somebody was saying that unfortunately there was this culture, and still is a little bit, that middle management and upper management are really the ones that receive the kind of knowledge to do this kind of work, right? Which is management of people, service, I don't know, psychological safety, motivation, and all this kind of stuff. You know, they're the ones who receive the training for this kind of programs. And so when you speak to a normal person in a company, yeah, they get the training that they need, but they get the training to do the job that they need to do, technical job. They don't get the experience or the training for the human side, right? And so I believe that that is what is happening. That is why people, when you talk to them, sometimes you don't feel that they're putting attention, that they're not there for you. And if you think about it, if a president was capable of doing that, do you think that a president just walks in and comes with all this knowledge? No, he has a team of people behind him, right? That is teaching him, that is, you know, training him how to talk, how to do debates, how to, you know, make a speech and body language and all this kind of stuff. I mean, all of this together, when you put it in a place of servitude, it's just magnificent. It's everything. There's a coach called Coach Fedari in LinkedIn, and he is exactly like that. He puts you all the attention. He's a coach for football, for soccer, and he was also in the hospitality sector. And I mean, you speak to him and you really do feel his attention is 100% on you. So bottom line, it's the training that is
I appreciate that. However, I think you know, it can be training. It can be somebody told you, hey, it is actually in everybody's best interest if you start incorporating some of these things. But I believe some people naturally have this sense of service and putting others. Yeah, I think, well, I mean, look at people that have trained as coaches. We do not, we are very other centered. And we could serve well if we desire to serve somebody well. We would have practiced quite a lot of this other focusedness and other awareness and open-mindedness, and it comes also with the training. But I think that also if you do have this if you have had a role model of a truly wonderful example of a servant leader, then it's very, very nice. And remember also that from a if we even just look, we're all global disc certified here, but if you look at the personality types, even there, you know that if you're more an S
Inclined.
dominant
Yeah.
person, right?
Yeah.
Then you might have more of those characteristics.
Hey, I wanted to, sorry to interrupt. I wanted to see that you can finish your thought and then invite Nadesh to give her
Yeah, absolutely.
perspective.
Nadesh, I did not mean earlier to boot you out. If you have something to contribute, you can always turn on your
Please,
camera.
Nadesh. Yes,
Please join
please
us
do.
again. I leave it up to you. No pressure.
We
You're on
can't hear you. Have mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I wanted to touch upon what you were saying, Claudia. Sometimes it's also the personality, as you mentioned, if you are more S-oriented, you have a tendency to be more attentive to the people around you, be more helpful. You look for harmony and this type of thing. And also, I think your upbringing has something to do with it. For instance, when I grew up, my mom, she always said, Nadej, treat everyone the same, whether it's the janitor or if it's the CEO. Always look at them through the same eyes. Don't make someone feel less than they are. So always look at everyone at the same level. And that has helped a lot because I remember working in Singapore. A lot of my colleagues, they weren't paying a lot of attention to the team assistants, right? And I was always going for lunch with them, and I always had a good time, and we became really close friends. And what did it do for me? It opened a lot of doors because what we need to remember, right, is that team leaders are the door to the leaders.
Yeah.
So being kind to them and also respecting, right? Because it's about that, respecting any other human. It doesn't mean that because you're a CEO, you shouldn't treat someone else the same way as one of your members of the board, right? And I have to say, I had an experience one. I was delivering a training here in the UK. It was a face-to-face training, the third one of a series, and I was meeting the team face to face. So they saw me on Zoom, right, for the previous two trainings. And so I arrived there, and because I wore my suit, one of the guys came out and he said, "Can you get me a Coke?" And I looked at him and I'm so sorry. I'm not from the hotel, but you can ask the lady. He said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Nadesh, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Oh, is the CEO here?" And he said, "Yes, he's outside. He's on the terrace." So I went out and I went to say hello to him, and he said, "Get me a coffee." And then he went like this with his hand. And I thought, oh man, you're lucky. I said, "Oh, I'm going to remember that." And I said, "Hello, sir. You must remember me from the training I delivered to you, right?" And he said, "Oh, yes, hi, Nadesh." He didn't even apologize. And I thought, what example are you giving your team by waving and dismissing me
Yeah.
initially, thinking that, I thought, I, I didn't say anything. I just walked away, I let him be. But I thought it's just being aware of your surrounding, And again, the waving of the hand, you don't need to do that, right?
Yes.
Because this
Yes.
can be perceived as really as a microaggression, right? So yeah, I just wanted to chime in is that sometimes it's just how your parents bring you up, how you are taught in school, and also your personality, as you said very well, Claudia and Sandra. So sorry, I don't want to take
No, no,
much
no,
more
no,
time.
please. No, no, it's
Chimed
a
in.
pleasure.
Right,
Thank
right.
you.
And thanks for the reminder because thank you and I am sorry are going a long way, right? I mean, because keeping up appearances any which way just for the sake of it is not always the most appropriate thing. So, if you did something not so great, apologize for it. But he might not have realized because he was just not attuned to it. It was not even on his radar. And that in itself is important data point that hopefully you were able to address somehow in a non-threatening fashion in your training. And also for us coaches and trainers to rethink our wardrobe choices in the future.
You know what, Nadesh? What you were saying, it makes me remember of a leader that I used to have. Well, I don't know if I should call him a leader, but yes, like suddenly you're with them in the office talking, and he picks up the phone and he would do like this, and you would be, oh, okay. Like, okay, well, I'm dismissed. Thank you very much, sir. But I think it's a cultural thing sometimes, but also let's remember that the leadership culture is you're never wrong, and you should never recognize that you did something wrong. You should just, move on with the things. If you did something wrong, just move on and try to correct it later on, but without saying I'm sorry. That is something that I read in a book a long, long time ago. And I couldn't believe it when I read it, because I would see that you see that in a lot of movies of the 80s, where they do not recognize or they do not apologize. They just move on, and they just try to kind of subtly try to fix it, but very subtly.
Not at all. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that that's also one of the reasons why so many leaders have trouble with these more modern concepts of vulnerability as a leader, about
Yes.
this being able to ask for help, being able to say that you don't have necessarily all the answers, which are quite modern paradigms in terms of leadership. They are not what would, let's say the Industrial Revolution brought about. And I believe that some maybe industries, some leadership roles might very well require a more authoritative leadership style. Again, there's no one style that fits all leadership situations. And nor can every leader be a servant leader. That's not the point. I think a good leader is the one that can lead no matter what his context and no matter what's required of him, that has enough awareness to figure out what could be most beneficial and most appropriate in a particular situation, and then pull that out of his bag of tools or behaviors and move forward. So there's no one size fits all in terms of leadership, and I think that's the challenge, but also the beauty of the leadership profession, is that much like coaching for that matter, but we have to be prepared to dance to the music that is playing. And that's one of the reasons too I love to coach leaders, because you need to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of have a lot of self-knowledge next to having a large bag of tricks or tools or paradigms and frameworks and lenses to view your particular situation through. It's really quite a wonderful thing that some good leaders can be doing. So again, the more servant approach to all that is to sometimes take yourself out of the limelight necessarily, but diffuse the light a little bit and let it shine on everything and the collective. I think the self-interest kind of takes a back seat to the well-being and the optimal functioning of your followers, your teams, your organization, and the community at large. I think that it's just something that, yes, thank you, Nadesh. You put in a comment, leave the ego at the door. Exactly.
Yes.
The self-interest,
Yes.
ego, this power tripping and things like that, and just literally put yourself at the service of this collective, if we call it that way, and have the sense of stewardship I think. And if you have a leader who really does this well at whatever level of the organization, I think it colors the culture around him or her. Because if you have a company, and sorry if I can't like mention one that is well known off the top of my head, but if you have a company who has this kind of leader at the helm, I think it changes the culture, and it will then permeate, for instance, how a service center representative deals with a client. It will be how a purchasing agent interfaces with a supplier. It will color how so it's really it's going to change the culture. Nadesh, you have a question? Feel free to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to ask you if you had noticed any differences in between female and male leaders. In terms of whether one uses ego a little bit more, whether power is more important for one or the other. So, having coached quite a few leaders, have you noticed any differences, even in terms of their style? Maybe one tends to be naturally more servant or not. Any insights into that, Claudia or Sandra?
Want to go first, Sandra?
Yes, please. So I'm thinking about three female leaders that I had, and none of them are the same. Okay, you have the female that is just simply a person that is naturally a leader and understands that you have the ability to understand and ask questions if you're in doubt of something. They will ask you and tell you what is needed. And then you, as a human being, they believe that you're whole, you understand what is needed, and you have the ability to ask the question. Then there's the other one that is young, that is learning, that has the occasional power trip, has I would say a little bit more of a childish behavior because they're young, right? And so you kind of have to put up with it, but then you can also kind of sometimes like put your foot down and say, hey, calm down, But, and then there's the female that unfortunately probably has had a long career trying to get to the top, right? And she behaves a lot like Mel. And when I mean Mel, is dismissing and just giving orders, giving instructions, and expecting for people to know what to do. That's it. So none of them have ever been the same. I cannot say that there's been more of the female being nice than the male. I think so far I've encountered an evenness in that. Thank you. Claudia?
Right. I also believe I don't believe that I can do any kind of generalizations in terms of gender, especially also because there's on one hand the personal preferences, and then there's the cultural requirements. Okay. And how much can you show up as yourself, and how much do you kind of take the clues from culture? A lot of leaders were males in the past. It's still a majority, I believe, and so that was how things were done. That was how leadership was done. That was how leadership was taught, because that's all there was. And I think that unfortunately still a number of females, since you asked the question, but I think even males that might not necessarily typically fit into that mold get a lot of their information from that maybe a little bit more outdated research or how to things, in that they might even reduce their own preferences and their style and their authenticity to follow those potentially outdated ways of doing things. So it's, you have to be the no nonsense guy and never show vulnerability and be authoritative, not necessarily dismissive, but authoritative and tell everybody what to do. There's unfortunately that was stuff that was taught for a long time. And let's not forget that. So I would never assume, just because I'm meeting a female leader or a leadership development client, to attribute any kind of style or preferences or whatever to that person
Right.
because of
What
gender.
about you, Natasha?
I wouldn't.
Yep.
No, it's very insightful. Thank you, Sandra and Claudia, for sharing. I mean, I tend also just to observe the person first to kind of understand, how they think, how they are. And I look also how they behave outside of the workplace. That usually gives you an insight if there is a shift, in terms of how they behave outside. As you said, Claudia, the authentic self, right? Are you showing up as yourself or are you following a model? But what I realized is funny, when I used to work for Siemens, the big boss was a woman. And when she was dealing with men, right, the guys right under her, she was really tough. And they were saying, oh my God, this tough lady, blah, blah, blah. And I said, how is she tough? How is she nasty? Because she's so friendly with everyone else. And one day, we observed, because she came and there was us girls, and then there were these managers, the male ones, and it's true. Actually, I could see she was talking to them in a different way, even though we were here. She was kind of putting on this persona to kind of get the respect from these gentlemen, even with us in the room. So we were looking at each other with the other females, and we said, wow, yes, she is a tough cookie, but we said, well done her, because she's owning the respect. And so we said, it's nice that she can actually command the room and be respected by these guys, even if behind her back, they say, she's a bitch, she's difficult, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, but at least she's, stating what needs to be done. But I think what you're saying, Claudia, is yes, you should, look at who they are as themselves, and then how the workplace kind of influences them in terms of what type of style they are using. And Sandra, I loved the 3 different types of clients that you have as well, because this gives also an insight as to what could happen or how someone can be, right? So thank you so much for sharing, ladies.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. Good question. And I think that there's flavors and sometimes there's an intention and not necessarily the ability to execute on that intention and forever, because maybe this lady at Siemens that you mentioned, Nadesh, maybe she could have commanded the room without bringing out her, sorry, I'm using a word that you used. I don't know this person, so don't think I'm judging her, but this bitchiness part of her, right? It would she have been able to show up as her authentic self and still command the room and still garner that respect? And so those are kind of the things that leaders spend a lot of time trying to figure out and fine tune. But again, to reiterate the point, I would not draw any kind of conclusions based on gender. So because I have had some very some excellent male leaders that had very female characteristics in terms of listening and talking about things and showing up and so on. And it's not good or bad, it's just different, and it is what is. And we should do, the last thing we want to do is judge. We just want to help people get to the point they want to get to, and feel that they have arrived in terms of their growth, their development, or at least making strides towards that.
Right.
So today's topic, a culture and mindset of service. We have about 5 minutes left. If there was anything either of you had a burning desire to contribute, now might be a good time to do so. Sandra.
Um, I don't have much to say. Really, I think what I needed to say was said. Um, what is important to point out is that there's still a lot of training that has to be done in order for people to recognize and appreciate this area of service, right? But also, I think let me mention that there's also the other side. It's not only the customer service side that has a responsibility, right, to kind of guess what you need, but when, for example, in the hotel service, when I'm going to go and stay in a hotel, I always write down what is that I specifically like and how things I like to be done, right? And I think there's this shared responsibility that we cannot just rely on the customer service to guess everything, right? So I thought about that. And then I also thought about Dell. If you talk about Dell, if we talk about the opposite, the bad customer service, Dell would be one of them. And they know this. It's even mentioned in one of the books, and I cannot for the life of me remember in what book it is mentioned, where, I can't remember the book, I'm sorry. It is mentioned in one of the books where for the longest time, Dell has known that their customer service is not at all good. They do have the people that speak very nice to you and everything else, but when it comes to follow-up, when it comes to telling you how things need to be done and, you know, responding, and it's terrible. It's just terrible, right? So you have the other side, and that's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much, Nadesh.
No, I just wanted to apologize because I think I missed a lot of important information from the beginning of the session, but it is really insightful to hear both of your experiences. I think this is very enriching, especially for people who are going to listen in later, and I'm going to definitely see the beginning to see what I missed. So you're doing a great job, ladies, and I think this is a great platform to share information. And hopefully next time I won't have any call that is delayed, so I can jump in from the from the beginning. So thank you for having me.
Well, it was an absolute privilege having you here today, Nadesh. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and joining us because you know we're trying to you know think through our own personal experiences and try to draw some conclusions or put possible conclusions that are what they are given our context. I believe that maybe also one of the things, Sandra, that you know might be a word to put into this relationship is mutual respect. I think that service is not a one-way street, and you know it would be too much to us just because somebody is an employee at a hotel or at the helm of a company, thank you, and gets a job, gets a salary that you know they are supposed to just magically always be at the service of the others. If you have a team leader that shows service by providing resources for the team members, professional development courses and support and coaching and all that kind of stuff, you know, I think that it needs to fall onto fertile ground and be respected for what it is. So because that's kind of nevertheless the fuel that drives it forward, right? We cannot always just be giving as humans. I think that we, even though we have this internal value maybe of this servant attitude or this generosity. It's very hard to just always be on the giving end, even though it fulfills you. So a little thank you might just be the way to go. And so let's all be appreciative of everybody at all levels, whether they be our bosses or the janitor or the person giving you directions at the local supermarket. Let's all just be a little bit more appreciative towards all of them.
Right.
And if you ladies are okay with that, maybe I'm going to use that kind of as a closing statement. But go ahead, Sandra.
Yes, I just want to give Nadesh the opportunity to share with us the name of her upcoming new vidcast. We call it VCast. And we would like to know the time and everything that you can share about your upcoming video.
Oh, thank you so much, Sandra. So yes,
Yeah.
we're doing, together with Chenge Fazenkas, we're doing a chat. We call it global check-in series. So every month we will have a different topic where we both, like you, share our experiences and have people come in and ask questions. And it will take place on next Friday, the 28th of July, I think at 12 o'clock UK time, which is 1 p.m. Luxembourg time. And yeah, we will be the topic will be about expatriation and immigration. So first of all, what is the difference between the two? And then how do we prepare? And how does life look like, as an expat or an immigrant? So that's basically, we're trying it out. I think, like you said, it's good to share with others, our experiences, our thoughts, raise questions as well. Maybe we don't always have the answer, but it's okay. It's there to think about, right?
Exactly.
So hopefully, yeah, we'll get a few people on the go as well. So you inspired us actually to do it.
That is fantastic. Thanks for sharing. And Nadesh, if you want to, you can put the event link, as a comment on LinkedIn to this event, so that people that saw you here can go and connect with you there. Given that we are kind of pitching events together. Together with a team co-coach of mine, Susan Shimamura, I am hosting a team coaching Ask Us Anything event next Tuesday on the 25th at 4 p.m. Central European Summertime, CEST, which is 10 a.m. Eastern American time. And there again, we're going to give a brief introduction to team coaching and then give the floor to the leaders that attend so that you can literally ask us anything team coaching. And just look me up on LinkedIn and you'll find the event, no problem. So thank you so much. Pitch concluded.
So, congratulations to both.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. It was a privilege having you here. If you do like the content, please, subscribe to our channel and otherwise engage with our content. Give us a like or a shout out. Or what we really like is a comment, maybe with an insight or a anecdote to enrich the content even further. You can always reach out to either Susan or I or Nadesh through the contact information. You can easily find us on LinkedIn, and our contact information is attached to the description of this video. We will be back with more 1 week from today. And so it was great having you. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Nadesh. Thank you. And we will see everybody again very soon.
Thank you.
My name is not Susan, it's Sandra, but
Sandra,
thank you.
Long day. Go ahead.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, ladies. Bye.